How many partners or vendors you have worked with so far?
If you talk about the numbers of partners in organization of BFSI, some vendors are from the IT department, technology department, some vendors from the business department.
If I need to look into or find my critical vendors, what all criteria is needed?
First of all, we need to understand the vendors are outsourced vendors or not outsourced vendors. But nowadays, evolution of technology, we have to continuously monitor any data leakage from the third party will impact the organizations.
There are three buzzwords which everyone talking about: S-bomb, AI bomb, C-bomb.
S2E11 technology help us to understand what are the hidden libraries in the applications and codes.
Is there any framework for going through for this risk management?
Checklist is one thing, and second thing, we have to do annual audit also. Third, I see any data is leaked from that particular organization and posted on the dark web, or any credentials are leaked.
You consider all your critical vendor as part of that.
Critical vendors also divided into two things. One is
What is the biggest case you have seen from the vendor side? Hello everyone, welcome back to the GB show. First of all, very happy New Year to you all. Hope this year will be a great success and fulfill all your wishes and dreams. So, I am planning this year, I will cover more of technology which we have not covered so far, the new faces, the industry leaders, and the very first episode, I have bring you along with me, Rajesh Dongre. He is CISO of HDFC Ergo. We are going to talk about a very critical topic for any organization, that is third-party risk management. Any organization have many vendors, partners, and the whole ecosystem is driven by the technologies, data sharing, and building infrastructure together. Either we are sharing something in papers, or we are asking them to build some application for us, or even if we have someone who is managing the admins like logistics or any other critical infrastructure, the supply chain. Third party risk is very prominent today, and we are going to deep dive in that discussion and going to tell you how to manage your vendors and risk effectively. Let's go into the discussion direct. Hi Rajesh,
hi Gaurav.
welcome to the GV show.
Thank you very much for calling me over here, inviting me.
Sure, it will be all my pleasure to have you in and want to have a discussion on, from your great experience which you have in the industry, right? To start, as I said, we are going to talk about the third-party risk management. I will like to know if in total numbers, if I ask, the whole experience you have, how many partners or vendors you have worked with so far?
So I have been worked with a lot of partners, but if you talk about the numbers of partners in organization of BFSI, ideally there should be not less than 2,000 to 2,500. But predominantly these are a mixture of the vendors. Some vendors are from the IT department, technology department, some vendors from the business department. So we need to segregate that.
Yeah.
So overall, that is the number of ideally.
And how many organizations you have worked so far in your role experience?
Corporate organization, I have worked almost with 4 organizations.
4 organization, and if average they have 2,000 vendors, that means
Ideally 2,500.
7,000 to 8,000 vendors we are talking about there. And I will like to get all your experience from that the time you have spent with them and all the learnings which we have from your experience we'll get to know. But to simplify and to start with for my audience, let's start. What is third party risk management and why it is critical or important risk for any organization to manage?
So third-party risk management for any organization is a buzzword nowadays in the technology world. See, earlier third-party risk management used to take like a compliance tick mark, a contractual obligations, and there were no governance on third parties. So organization used to blindly have a trust on them, share the data, all of things. So there was no control, no governance framework, no audit, and no monitoring was happening at real time. But nowadays, what happened due to the evolution of technology and the evolution of bad actors in the internet world, the third-party risk assessment has been very critical because the vendors with whom we work, there are a lot of integration of systems, there are a lot of integration of APIs, a lot of integration of various technology, and lot of data sharing happened between the organization and the vendor. So it is very imperative for the organization to have a robust third-party risk management framework to monitor the vendor continuously, to understand their security posture, to understand their technology, all of this. So this is in broad nutshell. The third-party risk management is very critical for us to handle because a single breach at third-party level, it will directly hit to the organization. Because if you see the recently enforced rule, DPDP Act, it says that even if the data get breached from the third party, the ultimately responsibility is about of organization. So we have to pay penalty, and we should be responsible not only the data in the organization but also at the third party. So to ensure that there is no data leakage and to prevent from the penalty that is up to 250 crore, okay, up to 250 crore per breach. So it is very important for the organization to work robustly to monitor third party engagement and third party vendors.
Okay, so that is where we are getting the importance, and you have brought a great aspect of privacy as well. I will go more deep dive into that in a later stage, but to understand, like, if I as an organization looking into uh, one out of those list of vendors which we have, how we will categorize that different type of vendors, okay, and then what do you think? Which one are critical for us? What will be the identification process? Okay, so maybe I'll put this question in two parts. So one, like when we talk about like the 2000 or 250 vendors, what are the different category of vendors, right? And if I need to look into or find my critical vendors, what all criteria is new should be looking
So
at?
there are two steps over here to identify the vendors. So first of all, we need to understand the vendors are outsourced vendors or not outsourced vendors. So we need to define that. We need to bifurcate that. So when I say outsourced vendor, means that the business what I am able to do, but I don't want to do it. I'll give it to the third party. So that is outsourced vendors. But the vendor is working for us. Second is non-outsourced vendor. Means the business which I cannot do, like technology. I can't build a technology. So those kind of a vendor is a non-outsourced vendor.
Okay.
We have to bifurcate that. Next step is that we need to identify criticality of the vendor, how critical the vendor is. So we need to have 2 points over here to focus on. One is business continuity. What if the vendor goes out of the business, or they have any attack, or they are not in a operational position? Will that impact to my organization's business as usual or not? We need to identify that. Based on that, we need to understand we can define the criticality. Second thing, we need to also understand, is data, customers' data or business data is going to that vendor for the business as usual process or not? If the data is going to that vendor, then we have to categorize as a critical. If data is not going, they're coming into my network and working on that our system, then we define it as a non-critical. So these are twofold steps we have to take. Outsource, non-outsource, then after that, in outsource, we have to define critical and non-critical. So my perspective is that wherever the data goes, customer's data goes, that is critical for me. And wherever the vendor becomes the single point of failure for me, which may impact my business continuity, is also become a critical for me.
Okay, fair enough. So one is continuity, of course, where the operation comes in play, and you talk about the data criticality part of that. And earlier you touched about the DPDPA Act. As I would like to do more on that. Like, for my viewers specifically, I have just placed a link here where we have covered a specific episode on DPDPA Act. You can click on and see that episode fully. And Rajesh, I would like to know from you, from the third party vendor perspective, when we talk about, right, how this shift has happened. So, because of DPDP, and even if someone has my personal data, that vendor now, earlier, if he was not critical, they have become critical now. And have you seen any fear in the whole ecosystem or vendors, or maybe any impact on managing this risk better now? So, anything which has coming overall?
Okay, I'm sure everyone must be aware what is DPDPA. So DPDPA talks about privacy, and information security talks about protection. So these are two different things, but it also overlap. So after privacy, protection has to be there in place. So in DPDPA, we need to understand ideally how the data will be shared with the client or with the vendor, because in today's world, organizations have, see, this is my personal view. Okay.
Yeah.
So organization must be working on a lot of data. Some must be having structured data, some must be not having structured data. Means they must be not knowing ki data of Rajesh Dongre as a customer. They have the data at what all place, in what database they have. So first of all, we need to understand where exactly the data is lying. Second thing, we need to also understand how the data to be shared with the client, uh, customer, and with the third party to work and operate on that.
So the idea was, Kaushal, that in DPDP, when we talk about the privacy, right? So one, what it talks about and how your non-critical vendors suddenly become critical, and is it there is any change in the ecosystem, like maybe from internal,
Okay.
your board is saying ki this need to be critically managed,
Mhm.
or vendors are talking about like they have the fear that okay, now I have to be more
Okay.
diligent because DPDP is applicable to everyone.
Yeah.
So how that ecosystem shift has happened?
As I said, DPDP it's a data privacy, and the data what we share with the vendor, it has to be also monitored. That is means it has to be also protected. So early, as I said, third party risk management was only a compliance mark, but nowadays due to the evolution of technology, we have to continuously monitor third party security posture also, because any data leakage from the third party will impact the organizations, not only monetary but also by reputation also. So third party monitoring, how we can do continuous attack monitoring service tool to monitor the external internet facing applications, the dark web, wherever the data has been leaked from the client side or vendor side. We need to proactively monitor to prevent any incident happening.
Okay, fair enough. And with the information security, privacy, and when we talk about TPRM, there are three buzzwords which everyone talks about. Suddenly, everyone is talking about S bomb, AI bomb, C bomb. First I will like to know what these terms are all about and why suddenly they are critical and everyone is talking around it.
So nowadays, a lot of partners or vendors or technology vendors are coming with a lot of solutions to ensure there is no impact on the organizations because of the third party vendor. Like when I say SBOM, SBOM talks about source code bill of material. So big partners who develop the applications for the customer and give that application to the customer or organization to work on the business as a crown jewel application. We need to understand a lot of libraries and uh, freebies are used in the particular application. So this SBOM assessment help us to understand what are the freeware used, what are the vulnerabilities in that, and what are the libraries used which are not licensed one. So that help us to prevent from any copyright issue, because I'll give an example. I have read this article in 2 years back, wherein one of the organization is the insurance organization who used to sell policies to the customer, and they used to print the policy in the PDF and send it to the customer over the mail. And after a couple of years back, suddenly one vendor came up that, sir, you are using my iText and it is not a freeware, it is a licensed version. And in last 5 years, you have printed a lot of policies used. So my license cost is something around X crores. So you have to pay that. So this is very critical, because it is not only monetary loss, it is also a reputational loss if it goes into the legal court of law. That person would have taken that organization to the court of law. So this SBOM technology help us to understand what are the hidden libraries in the applications and codes. So this is how it prevent organization. And in nowadays evolution technology, I strongly recommend all people to get into SBOM, at least to understand the application internal posture, not
Okay.
external one.
And what were the other two? AI
Other two,
and
AI bomb and cryptographic bomb is a very new buzzword.
Yeah.
So this help us to understand the transparency of AI models, what we are using, whether they are biased, not biased, whether the data is getting protected or it's storing the data of the network and all these things. So that helps us to understand the entire architecture of the AI model. Cryptographic bomb is also like, it's a new buzzword, and it's a new tool nowadays people are using to understand the cryptographic key used to integrate between partners, vendors, and organization through API or system, whether the cryptographic key is very secure or not, the algorithm uses a weak algorithm or strong algorithm, and whether the key is getting rotated regularly, kind of a thing, to avoid any kind of things. Because ideally what happened at partners and in organization, we have a strong security posture, we have a strong access control matrix, but in partners and there's no such security controls are in place. Their employees works on their own personal laptop They put the data on the cloud without any control because they want to access it from anywhere, not in from the organization, or they want to share it with a third party. So while they share this data on the cloud in the bucket, so not only customer data, they also share with the codes, the API configurations, all these things, along with the key, cryptographic key. So this is a threat. So we need to ensure that everything is taken care by robust third-party governance framework by monitoring them continuously.
Okay, fair enough. And when we say continuously monitoring, right? So, what all we should be monitoring, and how is there any framework that these all things need to be taken care of, or what this should be monitored? Because we have seen earlier the vendor risk management is a checklist, right? So it's a paper-based stuff, and there it's a monitoring or continuous will not help. Now we are talking about the digital assets and digital monitoring and stuff, right? So anything on, like, from your side, the best practices for going through for this risk management and managing doing the continuous monitoring.
So there are a lot of frameworks available in terms of third-party risk management. I'll just give my example, what exactly I do in my organization, what I've done in my previous organization. So whenever I used to onboard a vendor, see, checklist is one thing. We have to go through the checklist. We need to understand the intent of their vendors, organizations, based on the security. What are they planning to do? So we need to have a checklist. We need to understand the security policies, the access control in the environment. That is one thing we need to do during the part of the due diligence while onboarding the vendor. So that is one thing. Second thing, we have to do annual audit also. There's a part of again the regulatory part. So annual audit will always give you the past uh, snapshot of the security, but not a current. That one we have to do. Third, I enable my technology tool to continuously monitor the internet facing applications of the third party vendor for any bugs of or any vulnerability. So there is a continuous scanning happen through my attack surface monitoring tool to identify any vulnerability or to see any data is leaked from that particular organization and posted in the dark web, or any credentials are leaked or posted in the dark web. So this will only help us to prevent the incident to happen, and proactively we communicate to the partner. Third thing, what we need to ensure that wherever we share data, we should have an engagement or agreement with them that the data will be deleted as soon as possible and give us the certificate that the data is deleted, because the data is given to them to process the business. The business can be processed within a day or two. After that, the data is no longer yours. So we have to focus continuously and ensure the data is deleted from that particular organizational environment, and we should get a confirmation from them. So risk become diluted because the data will not be there. So this is how I try to govern my third-party risk management.
Oh, I think great way of putting things together and managing it. But like monitoring is one part, and another part is also getting prepared for the incident, right? So one thing which you mentioned, that attack breach surface or attack surface, which we were mentioned into. So when we are monitoring that, so you consider all your critical vendor as part of that from the organization side, and what all is getting monitored, or how you define that attack surface.
First of all, you need to understand what are the critical vendors. Critical vendors also divided into two things. One is it's a technology vendor, and second is your data sharing, working on data. So we focus on the organization where we have given the data for processing. And that particular vendor, we monitor the entire internet facing applications wherein the people are using to serve our business as usual kind of a thing. So this is how we monitor them continuously. On a daily basis, we get the report, and we have a governance meeting also with the vendors technology team to understand their current posture, their plan of action for enhancement, the security portion and all these things.
And for specifically for incident management, like either someone vendor have my data, okay, and let's say the data got leaked from that particular site. How we will manage that particular scenario, okay? Or let's say if there is a technology vendor and the technology go down, right? So those two are critical scenarios. And what I have seen in my past experience, when generally people do incident management, they do tabletop drills or create playbooks. Generally, vendors are not part of that whole chain, and we have lot of dependencies, over them. So, do you think any advice or anything best practice from the incident management where you think vendor plays a critical role, and you have number of vendors? How one should engage and ensure that if something is happening, vendor is again accountable and also coming as part of my BCP DR and managing my risk well. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, we need to understand, Gaurav, ki is there any cyber attack on vendor? And if there is a data leakage which belongs to our organization, so we are accountable as per to the law.
Yeah.
Okay. So they are not accountable. So first step, I will definitely take that. Ki first of all, I'll disconnect all the connects from the vendor. I'll disconnect my APIs and disconnect my application, because if the vendor's systems are compromised, it may come to my system also through API and other data sharing. So I'll stop our business with them. Second thing, I'll try to understand what all data has been exposed after the attack on the dark web. It belongs to my customers. We need to understand that. Third, we'll definitely extend support to them. That much that we can do. How you want me to support you to come up from the incident and help them technology-wise. So this is three things what I will do in the terms of incidents if happens at the customer.
Yeah, that's after the breach. Right?
After the
Before planning, have you seen that vendors are getting engaged and there is a preparation happening for these kind of incidents?
I mean, before incident,
Like incident management stuff, the vendors are generally not part
They're
of
not.
that risks, right?
Ha.
So that is where I'm seeing how we should manage that risk properly.
So ideally, see, incident management deal, we do it for our reduction, not for vendor, because it's not practically possible to do it for all the vendors, because we are dealing with thousands of vendors. Only one thing what we can, we normally do that, we ensure, it's again a checklist. It's like a check mark. We ensure during the audit, we ask them the question whether you have done any internal assessment or internal tabletop kind of a thing. Because if you see, vendors are not that big as organizations. They are handful of people. Like if we talk about technology team, vendor must not be more than 50 or 100 people team. Or if you talk about the business processing, they must not be about 200 or 300 people. Yes, some vendors have the robust security posture, and because the number of employees like a business processing unit are more than 1,000, 2,000. So they do practice incident management process, and they give us the certificate and assurance that, sir, we have done this activity as part of our regular activity, and they give us some assurance and comfort feeling. But that same kind of a thing we can't expect from the other vendors due to the size of those small vendors.
And for that, like this SOAP 1, SOAP 2 reports comes handy. We have to trust them, right?
We have to trust them.
And but while I was building up the contract, right? Like you have given a great example of how the SBOM can actually not only security wise but financially can come to a thing like. But SBOM is also coming from a vendor only, right? So let's say if he's not including, or for any data we are sharing, or the technology is getting developed, how you think that these contracts actually define or give you a overall edge compared to the vendor, right? How important it is to define a well contract, and what all things should someone be taking care of there.
Very good question. And I was not expecting this question. Okay. So this contractual things, it's part of my day-to-day life because I'm dealing with vendors, and every day when I onboard the vendor, the contractual part come, and there's a tough tussle between myself and my vendors. One part you need to take care, limitation of liability. So nowadays vendor push for capping liability. Next number of business, we will pay you 2x in case of disaster happens or any data damage happen, reputation or cyber attacks. I force it for uncapped liability.
Okay.
Whatever damage I may happen, because X amount is a business amount, he will give me 2x, but my impact is Y. Then who will pay me for that? So if you have to keep limitation of liability to uncap. So there create sensitivity and seriousness in the vendor to work in a
Will the
very
vendor agree for this?
Yes.
All partners are okay.
They agree. 99% they agree. Some challenges come with the international vendors because they follow international norms and they have the same kind of agreement with all the other country organization. So there is some challenge we get, but normally in Indian operation, these challenges are not that much. Must resist that, but we ensure that it happens.
Okay.
This
So
covers
that and making sure the vendor is accountable, and if there are controls because then it has need to go through like a lot of controls which they need to follow, the data they need to take care of.
So once that clause comes, limitation of liability to uncap for cyber attack, data breach, and cyber fraud, all these things. So ultimately, the seriousness comes within the vendor, and they ensure that the controls are in place so that nothing goes wrong. Otherwise, they will be in trouble.
Okay, any case study on that? And maybe a vendor who was not billing, or then he got agreed, or any thing
So there are a lot
on
of
the contract, maybe anything where from your past experience, or something where you seen that a good contract actually saved the organization, or any worldwide example if you have not personally experienced that.
that such case never happened with me in my career, but definitely yes, I can say that it gives me comfort feeling when I have this particular clauses in contracts. So there are a lot of must be happened cyber attacks on the vendors, but it did not directly or indirectly impacted to me or my organization. So that kind of a case study I don't have right as such, but definitely yes, putting this particular clause give you good sleep in night.
No, because these days people are talking about having a plan B for plan B, right? Or maybe we call it plan C, because how the vendors, or the technological vendors specifically, have been integrated in our ecosystem. They feel like they are then, and they become, the one point of failure. Okay. And anything, or how you think these kind of scenarios can be managed? Because we have seen cases like, CrowdStrike, we have seen, last cost, we have seen solar wind. So, there, let's say we have a lot of dependency on Microsoft. We have a lot of dependencies on Google, right? And cloud vendors specifically, where people try to put everything in one thing. So, all those critical vendors specifically hamper my whole supply chain, right? So, what do you think? How can be managed? Is there plan C need of the hour?
See, these are all the big vendors on which we are dependencies ages. Okay,
Yeah.
we talk about Microsoft. You can't have backup or second arm to support in case of Microsoft is out of support. So these are the big vendors. You have to accept the risk and go on. You can talk about the risk wherein the small time vendors are there. You can have a multiple vendors for the same business and distribute the work. Like one technology vendor is working on one technology and helping us to define that. The other vendor we should also identify to support on that. In business also, one person or one vendor is giving me the business processing business activity. You can have multiple 3-4 vendors. But if you talk about Microsoft, CrowdStrike kind of a thing, it's very difficult to have second layer of business continuity plan for that. It's a very challenge.
But I think now
Because it
people
will
have started thinking on that, and
it will have a big cost impact.
yeah, so there will be cost, and also some sort of continuity on that part. People have started thinking when it's not implemented. That is what I'm talking about. Like if plan C is actually needed or not, or we should trust and ensure that the assurance these particular vendors are providing us. But taking that part, I think what is the biggest case you have seen from the vendor side? If any company which was hampered because of the vendor, any case you have in mind, or you like to share, like, okay, this is as per you the biggest you have heard.
It's every case is biggest for us. The moment you say data breach and cyber attack, it's all big case. It's really depend upon the impact what it uh, come out. So in some cases the impact is less, in some cases the impact is new. So recently there was a attack on AIMS. So that is the biggest impact what I feel, because it impacted terribly not only on the data but the patient's health also. So because of that impact, operations not happening on time. There was a lot of delay. The patient has to be shifted from one hospital to other hospital. It is not only that, the money incurred by the custom patient's family was among us because certain emergency operations has to be done. And due to these particular systems, doctors were not able to have the right information, so the operation got cancelled. And that has been shifted to some other hospital, and the hospital demanded X plus 2x, 3x amount. So that is a very indirect impact on the customers and their families, patients and their families. But this is the biggest flaw I saw in TPRM managing that. So this particular flaw, not only because of the vendor's mistake, this happens when there is no robust governance of the organization. So I feel that your organization should be held responsible for all these things, because when you hire the vendor, it is your responsibility to ensure that the vendor is onboarded in a proper way. All the technologies used by their giving the business during the business operation should be evaluated thoroughly. there should be continuous monitoring or some continuous engagement with the vendor, because nowadays what happens, we onboard the vendor, then we never talk to the vendor unless the next renewal happens. Then again we ask for the documents.
I have a case on this, in one of the organization, happened with me only. Okay. And we were one of the non-critical vendor, and where we wanted to deliver a particular session on security awareness. And it's like where the person is coming and delivering a 45-minute session on online mode, and there's no criticality, no data sharing, nothing, and it's your platform which is coming, and we were just onboarded. And later we got some bigger contract from there where their AD was getting synced through the API with my LMS portal, and we become critical vendor because we are getting access to lot of your personal data, and but because we were already onboarded, nothing was asked. Okay, and we just go downward. And then I highlighted to that organization, this is something has happened, and I think your procurement team and your vendor risk management need to be look into this. And then they said, okay, give me ISO, tell me if you are so. Then a lot of things came to me, and my team need to do a lot of work. But I have seen there's a many organizations have this point which you are talking about. That once the vendor is onboarded, and during the time period, if from non-critical to critical, if it becomes, still there is no monitoring, and there is a process where generally there are yearly assessments which are happening, and that is for critical vendor. If the vendor is non-critical and you have not changed the status to critical, it will go for years and you will not find that that's a big gap. And so that is where not only yearly, but whenever there's a change, whenever there's a new contract, that assessment should happen. And that is from my personal experience. When you mentioned this, I have experienced that because now I'm on the other side and I see, but still that mindset of CISO is still there.
Yeah. That helps.
That background helps.
That is more important to have a continuous engagement with the vendor. You should have that.
So, Rajesh, I think privacy aspect you have given it a grade, but because of that, we have to be a bit conservative about the data which we are sharing with the vendors. Either we may need to mask it or send out fee for the giving the processing. But business generally don't understand these kind of things. And have you have come up with the situation like where becoming pushy and asking you to share data with a new vendor or existing vendor, but you want to be conservative considering all the legality and the securities are there, but still you have to share. How you manage those kind of situations?
It's a very tricky situation which most of the time happens with me. But at the same time, we need to understand that key information security is a business enabler, not a showstopper. So we can't afford to have a business to stop because of some data sharing, all these things. My first question to the business is that why you need the data? What is the importance of having the data shared with the vendor? What is the actual requirement? And I also try to talk to the vendor why you want this data. You don't have data to process that, or without this data, you can't do the business as usual kind of a thing. Second thing, I also push to have data, personal data of customers, to mask it and give it to that. That is the one thing what I do. And if there's a need to give data, then I mask the data and give it to the partner to work on that. But at some time, there is a need of PI only to run the show. When that time we have to put a security governance in place, proper technology understanding, where the data will be stored, who will be accessing the data, who will be having the rights to the data, whether the data will be using as a structure or non-structure, or will be injected in the systems or not, how the data will be purged after usage. That governance framework we have to put a robust thing, and regular interaction with the vendor should help us to ensure that the data is deleted after activity of business process is done, and a confirmation give us a more comfort feeling from the vendor that the data has been deleted and this is a certificate. Like in case something goes wrong, we can go back and tell regulator that we have ensured that the data is deleted from them.
Okay. As you mentioned, data is given, but how this we will ensure that vendor is processing it rightly, and also they are deleting it once it is done. How you monitor that?
So technically, not feasible to ensure that the data is deleted from the all footprints of the environment, because I don't know where he has kept the data in one system, on one cloud or second cloud. I don't know. Only one thing what I can do on the internet platform, we can scan the system to attack surface monitoring and ensure the data is there or not. Second thing, we have to trust them. At the same time, we have to suspect them also. Okay. So we ask them the certificate after deleting the data. That's what we can do.
Okay, fair enough. So I'll come to the another question which you were talking about the vendor monitoring. Most of the vendors when we are onboarding, our procurement team is uh, accountable to get the right vendor to us. Okay, and from my experience, I have seen they go for auction, they look into the pricing, and they try to pick a vendor with the low cost. Though they ask for technical details, but I have seen apple to apple comparison is missing. They generally don't see that if the technology is good, the security is good, but for them the cost matters, right? How you manage those kind of situations? Maybe if something happened with you personally, and if not, from the industry, what do you think, or anything you want to give an advice to the procurement team specifically?
Very good question, Gaurav. In that terms, I'm very lucky to have my procurement team in our organizations. We work very collaboratively.
Okay.
Ideally, what happened in the industry, the technology team, security team identify certain solutions, certain vendors for certain objective to meet, certain objective of having solutions. But being technology, lack of understanding of technology, procurement team don't understand that, and because their focus is only on monetary part, the KPI is money, how to save money and all these things. So there is sometimes tussle between the infosec and technology team with the procurement team. But in my experience, the whoever team with I worked in organizations, I've been very lucky because we set the expectations. I say that these are the 4 vendors. These are the 2 vendors with whom I'm comfortable because these are the solutions. What I want, they are sending it to us. Now, bringing to the cost, it's your job. Then he ensures that his expected cost, the technology is onboarded, which is suggested by us.
So then required parties need to do their own due diligence,
Exactly.
right? And that is how the collaboration will happen. So great, good to hear about that. But anyways, I think Rajesh, great insights from you. And as my audience is all yours, I will like you to tell that, okay, if anyone watching this episode right now, thinking of to start their journey with the TPRM, what they should look into, and what should be the process they should be following. So here I ask you direct this answer to my audience. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Okay, on third-party risk management, it is coming again from my personal experience. What we need to start with, first of all, we need to onboard a vendor. We need to thoroughly assess them, whether it's a checklist based or questionnaire based. We need to assess them. We need to ask them for all the relevant SOC 2, SOC 3, SOC 1, whatever the type 2 reports, the VAPT report of the particular applications what they're using. And more importantly, if we are integrating the application, we need to understand their source code report also, and the software composition analysis report. That is one thing we need to understand. Second thing, we need to always engage with the technology team and understand their security posture. So it should not be a big discussion on how the technology is working on these things. Only to this fair question asked is, any cyber attacks happened over there? Any upgrades have been happened in the systems? Any patches has been updated in the system? If any major changes has been made in the system, and ask them for the VAPT report if they have. That is the second thing. And third thing, what I strongly believe that we need to continuously monitor the security posture of the internet-facing applications, because this helps us to understand the vulnerability in the application, and it also helps us to understand if any data leakage happened on the backup. These 3 things, what I follow, and I feel that for me, I feel comfortable after having these 3 things in place. Okay, and there are a lot of things wherein you can do in third-party risk management. These are the 3 basic preliminary things what I feel it should have. Chris.
Sure, Rajesh. I think great insights, and as you are on my show, so for giving these valuable insights, you deserve a goodie bag. So thank you for being on the GB show, and here you go.
Thank you, GB, for inviting me in the show. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks. Take care, guys. I'll see you next episode. Till then, be safe. Take care. Bye bye.